Blessings. It is good to be back. My wife and I were away for a week and we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. We celebrated her birthday once we got back and kind of climbing back into the saddle, prepared to be with you on Sunday morning for great worship services. But I know there's many of you that look forward to a preview of what New Hope Community Church will be preaching on the weekend. And this week, I am bringing to a close the message on Lost and Found. And this one is, I call it the parable of the lost perspective. It is actually the second half of the parable of the prodigal son. But I want to remind you of the setting, and I think you'll understand why I've set this second part of that parable aside as a different message. The scene began with Jesus being confronted by uh, self righteous individuals that were accusing him of spending too much time with tax collectors and sinners. They had lost perspective of what Jesus had come to do. And in this, Jesus begins by sharing two short parables about the significance of seeking the lost. Then he shares this great, glorious, long parable about the lost son. And about two-thirds of the way through that, it comes to a conclusion. And then there is this next part, which is thoroughly and completely addressed to those who struggle with the concept of outreach. And I wanted to share that message today as I talk a little bit about how easy it is to lose our perspective when it comes to just sometimes everything, or more specifically in this case, lose our perspective when it comes to reaching the lost. I submit to you that the parable of the older son reminds us of the pitfalls that corrupt our perspective on outreach. Let me read the second half of this parable to you. It says this: Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. And when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. And so he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied. Your father has killed the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry, refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fatted calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. This passage of scripture, understanding that those self-righteous people who originally complained to Jesus about his efforts to reach sinners and tax collectors, broken people, he is addressing the whole issue of outreach, the whole issue of finding lost people, finding lost things, a lost coin, lost sheep, finally a lost son. He directs this last part, my opinion, directly at those who are seeking to belittle Jesus for his emphasis on the lost. I think how he responds to them in this parable, how the father responds, how the son is responding, reminds us of pitfalls to avoid when we are moving towards outreach. Here's the first pitfall. It's the pitfall of indifference. In this, it says in verse 28, the older brother became angry and refused to go in when he found out a celebration was occurring because his brother had come home. So the father goes out and pleads with him. I find this amazing. The indifference that the individual takes, one brother to another. Indifference is one of those very key things that can keep us from effective outreach. We become indifferent to the people around us, indifferent to the people in line with us at the store, indifferent to our coworkers, indifferent to our neighbors. More significantly, we become indifferent to those who, in our opinion, have brought trouble and difficulty upon themselves, those who have squandered, those who have made immoral choices, those who have become addicted to things. We can treat them with a difference because obviously they're the reason they're going through all those problems and difficulties. And so we can sometimes just put our hand up and treat them as though they don't matter. It is the first pitfall that we need to avoid. And in this case, the so what attitude of the older brother is so shocking and so difficult to understand because it clearly portrays the older brother filled with indifference to the idea of he who is lost has now been found. Indifference. It's the first pitfall to avoid. Second pitfall that's very clear in this passage, though, is the self-righteousness of the older brother. It's his self-righteousness that fuels some of the things that he says to his father. Look what he says in verse 30. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill a fatted calf for him. At this point, the older brother is totally focused on the fact that in his opinion, his righteousness is far above the horrible unrighteousness of his brother. He can't even assume, he doesn't even claim him as a brother at this point. He calls him this son of yours. And it's true. The prodigal had squandered wealth. The prodigal had been immoral. He'd done all sorts of things. Sometimes our self-righteousness, our seeing ourselves as far better or not as bad or clearly not as broken as those other people, is a major issue, a major challenge. Jesus tells another parable in one of the Gospels where he talks about a tax collector and Pharisee who are praying. The tax collector is wounded. He's overcome by just the reality of what he's like, and he's beating his chest and crying out in his brokenness towards God. And the Pharisee is, well, I'm so glad I'm not like him. You see, a self-righteous attitude makes us feel good about ourselves to the point where it hinders our passion for outreach. You see, when we remember how broken we were, when we remember how much we needed to be rescued, when we remember how important it was for us to discover salvation, that motivates us in reaching out to other broken people. In our brokenness, we all need the same thing. We need a Redeemer who lifts us out of the mire and brings us into a right relationship with God. So we're talking about pitfalls to avoid when it comes to outreach. We're looking at the second half of this parable. And there's a third one that I see in here that is very significant. First indifference, then self-righteousness, but then it's entitlement. Entitlement. Entitlement is this idea that somehow you deserve something that someone else might have, or you deserve to be treated in a different way because you've earned it. You deserve it because of your age, your race, your calling, your income, your status, your whatever. Entitlement. In verse 29, it says this. Once again, the older son speaking to his father. He answered his father and said, look, all these years I've been slaving for you, never disobeyed your orders, and you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. The passage reeks with entitlement. He's claiming that, well, look, I deserve more. I deserve better. I deserve to be the one that gets celebrated because I've worked, I've slaved, I've obeyed. Sometimes we feel that way about God. God, we deserve all the attention. Some churches get caught up in that They build program after program, which is just to meet the needs of the believers that are already there, the entitled. And they feel like, well, I'm entitled to that. I just want that. I want that. It's all about me. But Jesus is very clear at this point in this rebuke that he's giving to the self-righteous individuals around him, that their sense of entitlement, their sense that, wow, their obedience or their work gives them this right to think that God will treat them in a more focused and a better way than he will treat those who are lost. Entitlement. Entitlement can cause us to become so self-focused that we fail to take up opportunities for outreach. Outreach seems to be something that we don't need to worry about. I am talking about pitfalls to avoid as our church moves into a significant outreach season. We're targeting the summer. We're targeting 3 city parks. We want to reach children. We want to reach families, and we're basically kind of like equipping ourselves to be ready. And these pitfalls to avoid, there's another one. Yes, there was indifference. Yes, there's self-righteousness. Yes, there's entitlement. But the last one is this. It's a unique one. Is that there's a pitfall to avoid that is basically our desire for instant gratification. Verse 31 says this, my son, the father said, you are always with me and everything I have is yours. See, it can be very easy to think that what we're supposed to be experiencing in our relationship with God is heaven on earth. We get everything we want. We get a good life, we get health, we get a happy family, we get a good job, we get a good retirement, we get good vacations, we get it all. And we are focused on this often desire for instant good things in our relationship with God. But while we're on earth, actually, he's never said, look, on earth, it's going to be perfect. On earth, it'll be like heaven. No, actually, he said, in this world, you will have trouble. That's what he said. He said that to us, understanding that it was going to be easy for us to, wow, think that knowing him made everything perfect on earth. It would be a distraction. You see, his last words weren't, now listen, you guys sit back and relax and enjoy yourselves till I come back. His last words are filled with this great commission to go, to make disciples, to go find the lost, teaching them everything they need to know, baptizing them in my name. And lo, I will be with you until the very end of the age. You see, our ultimate gratification is when we find ourselves ultimately in his presence. And the forgiver speaks these words. Oh, I want to hear them. Well done, my good and faithful son. Well done. Well done. We are called in this lifetime not to be waiting for heaven. We are not in heaven's waiting room. We are on the mission field where God is advancing his kingdom, seeking to reach those who have yet to come to him, searching for the lost that they might be found. It is our calling. We're to be doing it in our Jerusalem, the city in which we live, our Judea, the county in which we find ourselves, in Samaria, to those people groups in our midst who are unlike us, to all points of the earth. We are to be doing it everywhere. Our calling is outreach, to reach those who do not know him. Pastor Bruce Resengata. I lead New Hope Community Church. It's a privilege to be there. But I want to let you know I am so excited about the waves of enthusiasm we are seeing as we move into the hot days of summer. And we are targeting parks and family groups and children with the idea of what if we could reach more? I ask you this question. Are you ready to join us in the outward focus? Are you ready to make a difference, big and small ways, as we reach out to the lost that they might be found. Blessings. I hope you can be with us on Sunday. I'll be there on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock and preaching the fullness of this message. Would love to have you with us. Be blessed.